The wind that evening carried a quiet sadness through the valley, soft dust rising over the golden fields, where the sky bled into hues of fire and dusk. A lonely ranch stood at the edge of the prairie, its fences broken, its barn half-shadowed by the dying sun. That's where Ethan Blake lived, a man the whole town called the Silent Rancher. Folks said he'd seen too much loss, that his eyes carried the weight of storms. He never said much, never smiled, but when someone was in need, he was the first one there, always. That day, he was tightening the ropes on his horse. Shadow when he heard the sound, a faint, desperate, like a cry swallowed by the wind. He froze. The sound came again, a child's voice, trembling, lost. Without a second thought, Ethan leapt onto his horse, kicked the dirt, and galloped toward the canyon. His heart beat faster with every echo of that cry. He didn't know who she was, but the tone in her voice, it wasn't just fear. It was hopelessness. Down by the old river trail, the ground had caved in after the last storm. A small wagon lay broken, its wheels shattered, and there, trapped under the wooden frame, was a little girl, maybe 10 or 11. Her dress was torn, dust covering her face, and her hands clutched at the dirt as if holding on to life itself. When Ethan pulled up and jumped off his horse, she looked up with those trembling blue eyes and whispered, "Please, just make it quick." Ethan's heart cracked open. He knelt beside her, brushing away the dirt from her forehead. Hey, easy now. I'm gonna get you out, sweetheart." But she shook her head weakly. "No, it hurts too much. I can't feel my legs anymore. Just make it quick." For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. He had heard those same words before, years ago, from his wife, Sarah, after the accident that took her life. And now, hearing them again from this little girl, it was like time had folded back to that night of loss. But not again, not this time. "You listen to me," he said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "You're not gonna die here. Not on my land. Not while I'm breathing." He pushed his shoulder under the wagon, his muscles trembling, veins rising against the skin. The wood was heavy, crushing, but the fire in his soul burned hotter. "Shadow!" he yelled, calling his horse closer. He tied the rope around the wagon frame and looped it through Shadow's saddle. "Pull!" The horse grunted and strained, the rope stretching, groaning, until finally, with one last surge, the wood lifted just enough for Ethan to drag the girl out. She screamed, a raw sound of pain and fear, but she was free. Ethan laid her gently on the grass, tearing his own shirt to wrap her bleeding leg. "You're safe now," he whispered, but her eyelids fluttered weakly. Why would you save me?" she murmured, her voice fading. "You don't even know me." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, the dust swirling around them, the river whispering below. "Because someone once tried to save me," he said softly, "and I wasn't strong enough to let them. I won't make that mistake again." He carried her back on Shadow, holding her close so she wouldn't feel the tremors in his hands. Every few minutes, he'd whisper something about the stars, the smell of rain, the way horses understand silence better than people do. He talked not to calm her, but to keep her awake, to remind her she wasn't alone. By the time they reached the ranch, night had settled deep. He laid her down on the couch near the fire, fetched water, and cleaned her wounds. She winced and cried softly, but he never stopped talking. "You're a brave one," he said. "Braver than you think." After a long silence, she looked up at him and whispered, "What's your name?" "Ethan," he said. "Ethan Blake." She smiled faintly. "I'm Lily." He smiled for the first time in years. "Well, Lily, I reckon we both got some healing to do." Days passed. Lily's leg began to recover, but she'd still flinch whenever thunder rolled or shadows passed near the barn. Ethan noticed. He'd sit with her by the porch every evening, telling her stories of his wife Sarah, not the sad parts, but the parts filled with laughter and light. Slowly that same light began to return to Lily's eyes. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Lily said, "You know, I thought dying would be easier than living that day. But when you came, it felt like God gave me one more chance." Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked out at the horizon and said quietly, "Sometimes he sends us to save others. so we can save ourselves too. From that day, the ranch wasn't silent anymore. Laughter returned, life returned. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan's heart, once buried under years of grief, began to beat again. If you're still listening to this story right now, maybe it's because something in it touched your heart too. Maybe you've been through pain or loss, or a moment when you thought there was no way back. But like Ethan and Lily, there's always a reason to keep going. There's always someone out there who'll ride through storms just to find you,